Hello, I'm Bob Long, and this is Dr. Hans Vink, and we're the co-founders of the GlycoCalyx Research Institute. So today, we wanted to take a few minutes and give you a little bit of history of how this whole thing came to be and how the science has evolved over the last many years. About 15 years ago, I had a health scare. I thought maybe I had a large blockage in my heart. And so I went to a cardiologist and they wanted to go in and do angioplasty because they thought they would put a stent in. So they did the procedure, and in the process, they discovered I didn't have any blockages. The doctor came back and said, "Good news, you don't have any blockages, but we don't really know what's causing the tightness in your chest." And so he proceeded to write out a few prescriptions and suggested that I exercise more and lose some weight, which I did. Really had no solution other than the prescriptions that he wrote out for me, which were blood thinners and hypertensive meds and all different kinds of things. So I was interested in discovering what's happening to me. And so by accident or by providence, I was introduced to the concept of the endothelial GlycoCalyx. And when I first heard the term GlycoCalyx, I couldn't even remember how to say it. And so, like many of you on the broadcast today, you may not have ever heard of the GlycoCalyx. You might know what the endothelium is. Turns out the GlycoCalyx is the most important thing about your health that maybe you've never even heard about, or maybe you don't understand its importance. So that's what we really want to talk about today. So Dr. Vink is one of the leading researchers in the world, and he and I met about 13 years ago when I had been trying to discover for myself what was wrong with me. At that time, he had about 130 peer-reviewed papers that had published with he and his research groups on the GlycoCalyx, proving its existence and then understanding what it did and why it was important. So I knew he was the guy to go to if I really wanted to find out what was wrong with me, and that's what I did. And then I also got the great idea that what if we could create a therapeutic in the form of a nutraceutical that could restore this GlycoCalyx. And so that's what I was working on when I met Dr. Vink. And so what I'd like to do is turn the time over to Hans Vink. Maybe before I do though, Hans, if you want to just show the first slide here. This was the big paradigm shift for me in progression of my thought process. When I first started on this journey, I thought this issue was in the large arteries and veins, the 1%. And what I discovered is, 15, 20 years ago, that's all the whole medical community was focused on, was the large arteries and veins. And then after I started working with Hans, I came to understand that really the issues start many years before that over on the other side in the microscopic capillaries. And so the reason that's important, the arteries and veins only represent 1% of the surface area where blood flows in your body. The microscopic capillaries are where 99% of the blood flows. And that's how every cell in your body receives the nutrients, the oxygen, and the hormones. And that's also how all the waste and carbon dioxide is removed. And so in working with Hans, we're going to explain to you the science that we've uncovered. And we've been on this journey now together for over 14 years with the GlycoCalyx Research Institute. And we've published over 120 peer-reviewed papers together using the GlycoCheck, proving these outcomes. And so I'm going to turn it over to Hans and let him show you and explain the science. The first images that he's going to show you are the most viewed images when it comes to GlycoCalyx science. So Hans, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Bob. Like you explained correctly, what most people don't know is that next to the large vessels that shown on the left that take all the blood to your organs and take it back to the heart, all the exchange of nutrients to your tissue cells is done in those small microscopic capillaries, very small blood vessels. When I started looking in what keeps these small blood vessels healthy, I started using big microscopes to look at individual capillaries. And then if you look at how blood flows through one of those capillaries as shown in this video, it became apparent that the red blood cells that flow one by one through these capillaries and carry all the oxygen and all the nutrients in the blood, that these red blood cells never touch the wall of these capillaries. And outside is the tissue cells. But in between the red cells and the wall is also this big space, a big gap between the red cells and the vascular wall called the endothelium. And it turned out when you zoom in to see what's into that space, we got images like these. So these are electron micrographs of structures that grow on the surface of the vessel wall. So on the left-hand side is a cross-section showing these extensive bushes on the wall. On the right-hand side is a higher magnification. Here on top is where the red cells are flowing. This is the vessel wall. And these bush-like structures called GlycoCalyx are polysaccharides produced by the vessel wall and actually protecting the vessel wall against damage and make sure your blood vessels stay healthy. So over the last 35 years, I have been studying the importance of GlycoCalyx to keep your microvascular system healthy and also your organs healthy, and what we can do to not only prevent the damage of this GlycoCalyx, but also working with you, Bob, develop novel therapeutics to restore and improve the health of that GlycoCalyx. Because if it's damaged, many functions of your vascular wall could get compromised. So on the left-hand side, it shows these blue polysaccharide structures of GlycoCalyx. And over the years, we and many others learned that the GlycoCalyx is very important for many functions of the vessel wall, such as the production of nitric oxide, which dilates blood vessels and controls blood flow, the binding of antioxidant enzymes like superoxide dismutase to protect the health of your blood vessels. Also, the GlycoCalyx prevents leakage of plasma proteins and fluids out of your vascular system, preventing edema formation, for instance. But also because of its size, GlycoCalyx is like a micron or bigger in dimension, which is much thicker than the small adhesion molecules on the blood vessel wall that are important for platelet coagulation and also inflammatory responses. So whatever the cause of GlycoCalyx damage, like aging or smoking or diabetes or hypertension, when GlycoCalyx is compromised, you lose the production of nitric oxide, vessels constrict and blood pressure goes up. You start leaking plasma proteins and fluids out of your vascular system, and you activate blood clotting and you activate the inflammatory response. So over many decades, we and others confirmed over and over again that the healthy GlycoCalyx is crucial to keep your vascular system healthy. And then working together with you, Bob, we started working not only on methods to measure how healthy an individual's GlycoCalyx is, but also if we can support individuals' GlycoCalyx health and prevent further breakdown of the microvasculature and restore organ health. The two products that we developed together on the left-hand side is the GlycoCheck device, which is a small handheld video microscope that we can put in people's mouth to measure the health of their microvascular system and the health of their GlycoCalyx. And a little bit later, we might also discuss our newest generation of GlycoCalyx therapeutic products called ReVasca, based on, for instance, polysaccharides from different seaweeds that we have developed to restore the GlycoCalyx. So if we start with the GlycoCheck device, if you turn on the camera and insert it in people's mouth, you get video like this. You see red cells flowing through individual capillaries, and then the GlycoCheck system captures many videos to measure in more than 100,000 blood vessels how healthy your GlycoCalyx is. So basically, it counts the number of microvessels and measures the health of your GlycoCalyx. So one example of a study that we recently did in many healthy individuals exposed to different levels of cardiovascular risk is shown here. This shows comparing low risk individuals to medium risk individuals and high risk individuals at early stages. So this is before diseases present themselves. If you count the number of capillary blood vessels, so this reference line is a normal level of capillaries in people with very low risk to cardiovascular disease. that already at this early stage, people at medium risk or high risk, you lose up to 30 to 50% of your capillaries. So you can imagine if you start losing all the small blood vessels over time, that becomes increasingly difficult to supply enough nutrients and oxygen to your tissue cells in your different organs. And at some point, the lack of supply of nutrients and oxygen will cause damage to the cells in your organs, and over time, those organs will start failing. Well, another study that we did recently, again in healthy individuals, is to measure their cardiovascular health and do a follow-up over the next 6, 7 years to see what happens if they get, a cardiovascular event like a heart attack or a stroke. On the lower left, this is our measure of GlycoCalyx damage. So PBR stands for perfused boundary region, so how deep red cells can penetrate and into a damaged GlycoCalyx. And then we realized if you look at the people that have the highest level of GlycoCalyx damage, and compare them with the people with a healthy microvasculature, it shows that these individuals during the follow-up had more than a 5-fold greater risk of cardiovascular events, getting a heart attack or a stroke or dying from cardiovascular disease. So it turns out of the 400 people that we measured, 59 people got a cardiovascular problem, and we could already predict 55 out of the 59 6 years ago, just based on how healthy the microvascular system was as measured with the GlycoCheck system. So one more slide I want to show you, Bob, is also again in healthy individuals measuring GlycoCalyx damage and microvascular health in relation to their exercise performance. So this was a study on the effect of high intensity interval training. And on the left, it shows that if you look at the level of GlycoCalyx damage, then the ones with the lowest level of GlycoCalyx damage, so the more healthier blood vessels, also had already at baseline the best exercise performance. So they can run faster than the other people with a poor microcirculation. Then in response to the 4 weeks of high intensity interval training, we also noticed that the ones that improved their health of the GlycoCalyx most were also the ones that improved their performance better than others. And similarly, on the right-hand side, we see that the ones that increased the density of their microvasculature most also improved their performance, their running performance better than others. So again, with this, this again shows that a healthy microcirculation is important. And with the GlycoCheck device, we can identify people at risk, but also to monitor the impact of exercise or GlycoCalyx therapeutics on their microvascular health and its effect on their exercise performance. So with that, Bob, I'll give the word back to you.
So that was helpful to give people a brief overview. Obviously, if they want to gain more information, they can go to the GlycoCalyx Research Institute, and it's very simple if you can spell it, glycocalyx.com, and we'll have a footer at the end of this video. You can see it. Or you can contact Jim or Christian at the Metabolic Elite, and they're very well-versed in our products and our science. So Hans, just in conclusion, beginning, I said this might be the most important thing as it relates to your health that nobody's ever heard of. So based on your 35 years of research and I guess our research together, what we've discovered is every time we've gone into a study, we had a hypothesis that the GlycoCalyx was the root cause of the issue. And so far it's turned out to be true. So maybe just summarize why you think the GlycoCalyx and the microcirculation is so important.
Right. Over the years, we studied in many different centers over the world, any kind of cardiovascular disease that you can think of. And time over time, it becomes obvious that no organ can be healthy if there isn't a proper supply of nutrients and oxygen to the tissue cells, to every tissue cell in your organ. In a healthy organ, every tissue cell is very close to a small blood vessel to provide all the nutrients. And it becomes very clear that when organs start being compromised of blood flow and small capillaries are being damaged, then over time, it takes many years, over time, there will be significant damage. And that's confirmed time over time. So a healthy microvascular system is essential for any cell in your body to be healthy and to get nutrients. And the moment that starts breaking down, it's just a matter of time. Years later, organs will start being damaged and organs will start failing. And the different diseases like brain disease, neurology, cognitive impairment, heart disease, diabetes-related problems in the eye, kidney failure, whatever you can name, acute inflammatory complications like in COVID or in sepsis. Whatever we touch, it always confirms time over again and again that breakdown of the microvasculature is one of the earliest health problems that start developing and causing all the downstream effects.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Hans. And we'll conclude here, and we'll be back in another short video and explain more about so what do we do about it, and talk about ReVasca and why we believe it's important and how it restores the GlycoCalyx health. Thank you.